Andy Lee, a very good morning to you.
Morning.
We've been looking forward to this moment for quite some time. The Andy Lee, Kenny Cunningham crossover.
You got to reference what we're laughing about.
Well, it was good day, mate, is what I was going to say to you. I'm not sure if you've seen if people at home have seen the Ronnie O'Sullivan video of him doing the Australian accent. Out of 10, how would you rate his Aussie accent? Pretty strong.
It was pretty good, yeah.
It's one of the easier ones to do.
Yeah. I like what he was doing because what he was saying was like, the Australians are so positive, and he was getting into he was kind of using that as a method to get into that mind frame, you know?
Yeah, it's true. So can you do an Aussie accent?
I think we can all do an Aussie accent. You'd be letting him off the hook if you asked. He should do a Dublin accent, because he's just saying how he's, he's part of the scene now in Dublin. I think you should put him on the spot and tell him to do a inner city Dublin street urchin accent.
I wouldn't be able to walk down Main Street if I tried. Get out of it.
I think he's picked up a bit of a Dublin twang, Kenny. Can he, is there...
swagger. He's probably got a bit of a swagger now.
A Dublin twang. I always get told that I've lost my Kerry accent entirely and that I picked up a Dublin twang. Very different things, it must be said, and also something that kind of makes me a little bit ashamed. But as I say, we've been hoping to actually make this cross-pollination work at some point. We've been asking for months for Andy Lee.
Don't force it.
But speaking of forcing things, when we told Kenny this morning that you'd be coming in to deliver your top 10 pound-for-pound boxers in the world, Kenny was like, I love compiling lists. And he's got jotted down...
That's not a quote, Andy, that's not a direct quote from me.
He's jotted down some of his favourite boxers of all time, which we'll get to later on.
Yeah.
You can tweet us at Off The Ball if you want to get in touch with us about your favourite boxers. We'll see how they correlate with Andy's, or with Kenny's list. But we may as well get straight into this. We did this last year. Top 10 pound-for-pound boxers in the world. Before we get into it, how are you judging this? Is it your favourite boxers? Is it who you deem to be the best?
It's a number of ways. These pound lists are so subjective, and they're kind of, there's no real definitive way to compile one. And the way I do it is that if these guys were all the same weight in terms of their skill, and they were to fight each other, who would win in terms of their skill and who's the better boxer, regardless of weight? And then you had to look at some of the wins they have on their record against some of the other top boxers. And that's kind of how I've compiled this list. So, we'll go through it and I'll explain as we do. But, it's the start of the year, and it's usually a good time to see how this is and see how it compares towards the end of the year or even next year, because a lot of these guys, some of them will be fighting each other again over the course of the year.
Absolutely. There's some fascinating bouts within this list going through it. And we may as well start at number 10. I think it's Jeff Horn you've gone for.
No, I've actually gone Jeff Hurd. There was a spelling mistake there, yeah. Jeff Hurd. Jared Hurd.
Jared Hurd.
At least get one of them. It's Christian Norris.
No, sorry, Owen. That's a mistake between me and...
You stitched him up there. You stitched him up there. You just humiliated him live and air.
Well, you can blame Joseph partly and me partly, because...
I got half a name. I got Jeff Hurd.
I sent it...
which I presumed was Jeff Horn.
I sent it to Joseph saying Jeff Hurd. He wrote down Jeff Horn, because there's an Australian boxer called Jeff Horn, which doesn't belong in the top 10 anyway, you know,
belief, but I would bow to your superior knowledge.
Jared Hurd, which is the one I met Jeff and Jared, but he is a light middleweight fighter. He's huge at the weight. He's got 2 great wins, one over Alessandro Lara, who could be in the top 10 himself, but lost at the weekend, a close fight, probably a bit on the decline in terms of his age, but he also beat Tony Harrison, who went on to beat Charlo after that loss, and is now WBC titleist himself. So, this was a toss-up for me between number 10 spot between Hurd and Callum Smith. Callum Smith is, the super middleweight from Liverpool, one of the Smith brothers. His win over George Groves really, puts him in the shout. It was just the fact that Hurd has a win over a current champion.
Right.
That just give him, but it's a toss of a coin between the two of them to be in the top 10.
We've seen the list up on screen there, so we've kind of given away the rest of it, but we may as well go through the first couple of ones here, because we've spoken about these last year, the next 2 boxers. We go to Naya Inu, who's at number 9. He's 25 years old, Japanese bantamweight. Is he the youngest guy on your list?
I think so, yeah. He's probably the youngest on the list. Maybe Mikey Garcia is there, but no. He's on a straight, run of KOs, 7 straight KOs.
2-weight world champion.
Yeah, at that weight, at bantamweight, that's serious punching power. He knocked out his last guy. He's involved in this tournament now, which is the World Series of Boxing. It's like a initiative where the best fight the best in each weight division. They've done it at Cruiserweight, they've done it at Super Middleweight, and this is the bantamweight iteration of it. And we've had some good fights, and he was a lot of people's favourite before it, you know. He's going up against Rodriguez next, who's 19-0 himself, but not many people are giving Rodriguez a shout, so it'll be interesting to see how he does against him, because Rodriguez is not really a seasoned boxer, but a well-schooled boxer, you know, so...
I'm actually fascinated by that because it's happening in Edinburgh. I think all bar
Glasgow, yeah.
Or it's in Glasgow, sorry.
Yeah, May 15th. Like, this is a chance for people to go to Glasgow.
I'm all over the place.
I think Joseph really stitched you up here with what he said.
The thing is...
Do you want me to take over the interview? Go and have a coffee.
The thing that I definitely know is that I don't know a lot about this guy, and not many people know a lot about this guy. I think, is it all bar one of his fights have taken place in Japan so far, that fighting in this part of the world, it's kind of a novel opportunity for him.
And for fans of this side of the world to go and see maybe one of the premier boxers, you know, in the world, and someone who might go on to be a bit special, you know, he looks like that now in terms of his technique and obviously his punching power. So, you know, Glasgow's a short trip away. It'd be a nice little, it's kind of an oddity to go and see somebody from Japan, someone with this reputation, to go fighting the guy from...
Is there a big tradition of like professional boxing in Japan?
There is at the lighter weight divisions. Always at the lighter weight divisions they've always
I don't remember too many like Japanese fighters.
Yeah, it's rare that they break onto the world level like this. You know, it's usually kind of self-contained in Japan, and they're fighting regular. But no, usually at the smaller weights. Yeah. That they're pretty strong.
Yeah, speaking of smaller weights, we move on to number 8, another guy who we had in the list last year, Wisakil Wangek, or as he's more commonly known, Srizagetso Rung Vizkai.
It's not easier either way, you know.
Just rolled
I don't know what to say.
He's back, you come out there on the way back.
I know my Thai boxers better than my Scottish.
Do you know what they do in Thailand? And I don't know this is direct translation, but they named the boxers after, the boxers carry the name of the gym. Do you remember the gym that they train at? Remember the guy who Bernard Dunn lost to? Punsun Wat, whatever, go on. That's actually the name of his gym. It's actually not his name. So what, the first name that you mentioned, go on, Owen.
Wisakil Wangek.
That's his real name.
Right, so that's not the gym name. The gym name...
Samvaye, whatever.
Srizagetso Rung Vizkai.
Maybe it's the promotion of the gym that they train out of, but that's how they take their name.
So your name should be Gronk Lee.
Kronk. Now you've gone down again. Kronk. Oh, box and booth.
Like, just looking at this guy before, like when we get into number 7 here, this is when things start to get really exciting on this. But I think this is the number 9 and number 8. When you kind of look at these boxers, what are you seeing? Is it their style? Because that's what I assume when I look at these guys, that it is.
Yeah, with this guy, he's just relentless. You know, he went up against the other pound with the guy who was like in 2017 fought Roman Gonzalez, who would have been maybe 1 or 2 in this list then. And he absolutely did. Well, the first fight was quite close. You couldn't met an argument, but most people thought this guy, Ringson Valle, won it. And then they have the rematch later in 2017, and he absolutely destroys him. And since then, he's gone on. He's had 3 fights in 18, and he's scheduled to fight again April 26. And he's just non-stop. There's a story about him when he used to collect trash on the streets of Bangkok, and that's how he'd feed himself, you know, searching through rubbish bins and that. And that's where he's came from, and you can see that in the style and how he fights. He's so hungry, and like I fought on the undercard when he beat Gonzalez the first time, and you know, you kind of see that's where, not to generalize it, but no one expected this guy to come and beat Gonzalez, and he was very quiet, very humble. A small team was with him, and he just exploded on the fight night, you know, and yeah, he deserves his spot there on the top 10.
So this year we've got number 7 against number 6. We've got Mikey Garcia against Errol Spence Jr. And we'll start with Mikey Garcia. Why has he made your list?
Just because these guys, you can switch them either way, Garcia or Spence. I think they're scheduled to fight now March 16th. Garcia's got some big wins on his record. He's beaten Adrian Broner. He's had some spectacular. He's always been a solid performer. And in terms of, like, there's nothing that he does really spectacular, but everything he does is fundamentally perfect in a way. And there's an argument to say that he's actually the more skilled of the 2 boxers. But a lot of people are favouring Spence when they do fight because Spence is probably the natural bigger man who's been at welterweight his whole career. And Spence himself has a win over Kell Brook. Went to Sheffield, fought Kell Brook in his hometown. Wasn't getting all his own way, but found a way to win and came through strong in the end. Kell Brook retired in a fight with a fractured eye socket. So that's why I've gone for Spence over there, because I just hold that win over Brook at the time when Brook was really, you know, one of the top boxers in the world. That's why I have him above Garcia.
The two lads were doing media this week, Garcia and Spence was saying that, you know, I'm never in a boring fight, even if it's me just beating up my opponent or them just being hurt. I'm always going to try and stop my opponent and put on a spectacular performance. Is that something you go along with? This guy's a showman.
He's kind of relentless and methodical, and because he kind of goes through his opponents, they're always good fight. Like you know, in America,
always coming forward. Is that what you mean by relentless? Always coming forward.
He's a big southpaw, and he just walks people down for the most part. You know, even when he wasn't getting his own way with Kell Brook, he kept edging forward all the way, and just in some ways breaking Kell Brook's heart. You know, and that kind of way when someone's coming at you and you're hitting them with everything you have, and they're just walking through and not showing any emotion on their face. It can be very deterrent. You know.
Yeah.
He just gets himself into a sort of flow state, and there's a ruthlessness behind that.
I think so, yeah. But it will be, like, as I said, there's an argument that Garcia is the more skilled, the more well-rounded boxer. And it'll be interesting to see. Like, I met Garcia when, in his debut, he was fighting on an undercard in Las Vegas, and one of my teammates was fighting on the undercard. And it was this guy who was way down the undercard. He might have been the first fight of the night. And they didn't have much hope for him then, and he was actually a trainee police officer, you know. He's the brother of IBF former world champion Roberto Garcia.
Oh, yeah.
And that's who trains him. So he is obviously from a good school, but he's grown and developed into like one of the best boxers in the world.
Where is that fight taking place? You said April?
I think it's California.
Right.
You can correct me on that, but it might be Texas. Spencer's from Texas. We can look it up, but
you really get to see these fights. We're so used to the big razzmatazz, the heavyweight and bump. You know what I mean?
It's funny because this fight, like these guys fight under a banner, a PBC, which is like one of their promotion. That's their promotion, and they've done a deal by TV, but no British TV company have picked this up yet. So that's a fight
it's a shame that, isn't it? If these fighters are as good as they are, you just don't get the opportunity to see them. Generally, it's the big razzmatazz. Some of these big fights, I suppose, from a technical point, wouldn't be the best, you know what I mean? But they sell them, whatever. But from a technical point of view, in terms of quality, where you're watching, it's a shame we don't. It wouldn't be I like boxing, but not a huge boxing fan of sorts in terms of my knowledge of the sport. But I'd love to see the opportunity to see these fights.
This is one for that's one for the diehards. You know, it's not one for the razzmatazz.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all throw and cheer. This is both of these guys have in their press conferences to conduct themselves, you know, like gentlemen and
professionals. Like all about the contest. Yeah.
Well, it is taking place in Texas this March. Like, just a final point on this on 7 and 6. Garcia hasn't lost. Like, is this a huge risk for him taking on this fight? But I guess
neither guy has lost.
But from his perspective, like, if you're looking at him as a number 7 here, as opposed to taking on a number 6, he has to take him on at some point. Is this part of his legacy, basically?
Yeah, like these guys, although they have those kind of big names on their, like Broner for Garcia and Kell Brook, by far this is the biggest fight. And this will like both these guys are welterweight. Further up the list, at number 3, I have Crawford, Terence Crawford, and they're all in the same division. They may never fight each other because they're on different promotional banners, but the winner of this fight between Spence and Garcia will have a shout to be because they've beaten each other, beaten one or the other, will be the number 1 in the division.
It'll be like, we can skip on to him, may as well skip on to Terence Crawford, and we'll come back to GGG and the likes of them in just a moment. So another guy who's completely undefeated. When you talk about Terence Crawford's next fight, it may not be as good a fight as the one we've just been speaking about, but chances are it's going to get a hell of a lot more of the limelight because of Amir Khan.
Yeah, like you're referring to, Kenny. It's Amir Khan. And because he's such a big name this side of the world, and in world boxing, that it will get a lot of publicity. Like, just to go back to, we'll talk about it. Maybe I'll make that point at the end when we speak about Lomachenko and Crawler. But this is a good fight. I don't think it's like Khan has to be, he has to be given credit because he's taken on the number 3, to me, the number 3, maybe the number 2 fighter in the world. And he's going to go and do it in his home country. So, people have been kind of giving Khan a bit of stick over it. Why didn't he fight Kell Brook? What's he going there for? Why is he taking this fight? But for him, his motivation is to fight the best and be the best. And doing that against Kell Brook is not going to make him the best. He's still going to have to go and fight these guys. So
is that genuinely what's motivating Khan? Just in terms of
and also probably not to give Kell Brook the satisfaction of having a fight. That kind of way. It's a little bit of
that as well. Yeah. Where is he, Khan, in terms of at this moment in his career and in terms of his boxing ability?
He's on the not really a comeback trail. He had that horrendous knockout against Canelo. He stepped up to fight Canelo, which was at light middleweight. It was kind of a catchweight fight, and he was doing quite well in the fight. And I think it was the 4th, maybe the 6th round, he got knocked out cold with a right hand. And he's took some time off after, and he's built himself back up with 2 wins. Looked good the first time around. Didn't look too good the second time around. Kind of went the distance with a guy who was expected to beat, and now he's stepped into this fight with Crawford. It's Amir Khan, he's an Olympic silver medalist at 17. You have to give him a chance. Right. Look at the guys he's been in with. Look at the guys he's beaten. He's been in with Malinaji. He's been in with Madonna. He's been in with Canelo. He's been in with all these world champions. And so you have to give him. The list goes on. You have to give him some credit.
Is he
give him
smart
a chance.
Though, Khan? And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people they go in with those fighters and they learn, you know what I mean? They're smart, they're switched on, and they become better fighters because of it. I mean, is he that shrewd? Obviously, he's always had talent, Cam, but is he shrewd up between the ears?
One thing I would say that he's jumped from coach to coach throughout his career. Now he's gone back to Virgil Hunter, who's the coach of Andre Ward, and that for me, I don't show what kind of work, but he's a very experienced coach, Virgil Hunter, and in the corner he's always very impressive, a good motivator. And for Khan's downfall has always been, for me, that he starts his attacks from too far out of distance because he has that speed. He can just jump in and bam, 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 5 or 6 punches and then jump out of range. But the best fighters in the world will start to time you. They don't rely, there's a saying in boxing that your timing will beat speed. When someone's really fast, you can time them. You just have to look for the patterns and how they box. Yeah. And when Khan would start his attack from so far out, he would come in and leave himself exposed. Can
he get out of that, Andy? Can you find yourself getting into that pattern and try and disrupt that pattern?
That's not a flaw, but that's something that's embedded in him. In his style. And it takes a lot of time working on it. Now, has he been working on it? We don't know, But anything that's a habit, it takes a long time to break, doesn't it? Yeah. In anything,
I was watching Crawford on First Take a couple of months ago, I'd say, at this stage, where himself and Amir Khan were in the studio together with the 2 lads, and Crawford was basically saying there was just no other people in the division available. So, he didn't say we had to take this guy, but he did hold up his hands and say, listen, Amir Khan was kind of the best available option. But from his perspective, this is a pretty high-profile fight as well. Does he have designs on making waves over in this side of the Atlantic? Because if he does and can, it's a pretty good avenue to go down.
It is, yeah. And boxing fans know who Crawford is. Everyone's aware of him, but the general public, this will be the fight where people will pick up and say, well, if he beats Khan, Crawford, to me, he's if you think, I had this quick glance at the list, you got Hearns, Duran, Leonard. He's the type of fighter who could hang around in those days because he's a real old school throwback boxer. He's slick, he fights, he punches, he's a finisher. Think of Ray Leonard. He's that kind of a fighter. Yeah, maybe not as spectacular in terms of his speed, but everything else he's there. And he kind of has this kind of attitude that. There's some great videos of him online. There's one video, a HBO, that followed him in the build up to a fight, and he was making weight. This is when he was making light welterweight, and they had all the access, and he's drying out, and he's in the sauna, and he couldn't still overweight, and he's in his shower, like in the bathroom in the shower with the shower on, this towel under the door, like getting the steam up right before the weigh-in. And all the while he's got like 3 or 4 of his own kids just running around playing PlayStation in his hotel bed. And this is all like chaos, but he's just completely like at home in there, you know? And there's also another video of him where some guy on the street, like where they're from, challenges him to like body shots, and he ends up like, come on then, he's, you know, this big heavy guy, and like they're doing body shots. Yeah, just like, and he ends up dropping the guy. So like boxing is just natural. Like it's just something that he does, you know. Like I don't think he's a guy who would suffer from performance anxiety, because it's just like, this is what I do, you know. It's just
a bad thing.
Yeah.
So that's at number 3, Terence Crawford. We'll just double back to number 5, because you got GGG here at 5. His next fight hasn't been planned yet. He hasn't fought since that Canelo fight in September, but the television setup here is fascinating. He signed with DAZN, I think.
It's in the midst. I don't think it's been confirmed yet. It's looking that way, that he will sign with DAZN. Like, there was a lot of money in boxing now, again, because of boxing is moving into streaming. It's kind of more into streaming now.
Right, really? Oh,
you have ESPN Plus.
I'm lost, Tom.
You need to get set up.
DAZN and PBC. So there's a huge amount of money, and he's obviously being a free agent with HBO gone now.
Like DAZN have huge power in that division now.
Yeah, they like two. Jacobs and Canelo, Jacobs and Canelo both fight under DAZN. Also, Demetrius Andrade, who's WBO champion, who GGG is mandatory for. So that would make sense for him to go to DAZN. They would. It would give him, if he beats Andrade, he'd give him the third fight with Canelo, assuming that Canelo beats Jacobs, or he'd give him a fight with the winner of that fight between Jacobs and Canelo. So. Look, he's still in there on my list, and he's still one of the best fighters out there. He had a draw, and then he lost a close fight to Canelo, and so a lot of people think that Golovkin won that fight. So,
he certainly did.
Yeah, he certainly did. I thought Canelo won both fights. I thought Canelo shaded both. Well, the draw was fine. I was fine with the draw the first fight, but I thought Canelo won the second one. Not clearly, but. By a couple of rounds.
In the trilogy, who wins?
Canelo. Canelo's been very smart in this, because that fight was in the making a year and a half, maybe 2 years before they actually did fight, and Canelo kept putting it off. Or Canelo's team, whoever was involved, kept putting it off, and all that time Golovkin was fighting and getting older and having more wear and tear, and Canelo's the younger man. So it all just kind of played into his hands. So now you look at another year down the line, and if the fight was to happen, it'd likely to be September, so that'll even be more time.
It's a shame that, isn't it, when you don't get to see boxers fight in their prime against each other. Like, that's obviously a deliberate policy, knowing that lad is age. That's such a shame, isn't it? I would have, even from Canelo's point of view, would he not, in his heart of hearts, I want to beat this fight, but I want to beat him at his best? You know, is that a bit of an old school mentality, Andy?
Yeah.
As opposed to, I just want to keep the win record going, the money coming in. I want the satisfaction now when I beat this fella at his very best. That means more to me than ching, like money in the bank. No?
I think when people look back in 10 years, they won't remember that. They'll just see the name on his record.
Yeah, but from his point of view, the personal satisfaction as a boxer, as a sportsman, no?
I think it's more...
Doesn't carry that much weight?
It should do. Yeah. And it should, definitely should, you know, but probably not. Yeah. You know.
It's like the Mayweather's a Pacquiao. That was the same. Was a similar type of thing there in terms of Mayweather just pawning him. Shame, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I think we've covered number 2 there in Canelo Alvarez as well. I want to talk about the 2 Ukrainians in at number 4, and at number 1 you got Usyk in at number 4, and Lomachenko in at number 1. I think he was your pound-for-pound champ as well this time last year. Just a quick word on Usyk, and in terms of like his weight, like obviously cruiserweight. Deontay Wilder, speaking after the Bellew fight, was like, if he's smart, this guy stays a cruiserweight.
Yeah, well, he's rumoured to be more or less confirmed he's moving to heavyweight now. And he will fight against the Russian former Olympic champion Povetkin. Yeah, Usyk is a great talent. He's fought at super heavy as an amateur, so that's 91 kilo plus. He actually has a good win over Joe Joyce, the English heavyweight, who's professional now, who beat Remains to Burn last weekend. So this guy can mix it with those big guys to an extent. Like, I don't know if he can mix it with the super heavyweights of the professional world, the likes of Wilder, Fury and Joshua, because those guys are 18 stone plus, huge, 6'4" plus. But in terms of his skill, he can definitely hang with these guys. But
that's too big a hurdle.
It is. It's just the physique, the physical strength of those men, leaning on him, pushing him around. It's the only way to just like the reasons why the weight divisions are in boxing, because it affects the fight. It matters. Yeah, it's like when you wrestle with a kid. Like as an older boy or a grown wrestle someone who's younger or smaller, you can just manhandle them, and that's the way it is when you're going up against these big guys. For him, so it'll be interesting to see which way they plot the path in the heavyweight division. Maybe he's already unified champion at like he's unified all the belts at cruiserweights, beaten all the other champions, and also finished with a win over Tony Bellew. And so he's gone into heavyweight. Maybe it's plot his way to a title fight with one of the big guys, maybe Joshua, and then not cash in, but see how it goes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just roll the dice, and then he can always go back down in weight. But he's not the youngest. I think he's in his 30s at the moment.
Yeah. 32.
Yeah. So, how long has he got left? And there's he's probably financially secured already, but that's mega bucks fighting one of those big men.
Just before you get on to Lomachenko, because we want to get a quick word on him, there is none of the big guys on this list. Why is that?
Because they haven't fought each other yet, the three big ones. And that's basically it. Like Wilder and Fury did, but it was a draw, so it's inconclusive. Yeah. And as I said at the start, if it's pound for pound, there's no weight. If they're all the one weight in terms of their skill, who would win? I think any of these boxers are more definitely better boxers all around than the big heavyweights, because Tyson Fury is a skillful boxer. But will those skills carry him through if he was fighting somebody his own height and his own reach? And whereas Wilder's a big puncher, but not a great boxer. And the same with Joshua.
Is that always been the case with the biggest of the big, or would there have been an era of heavyweight boxing where you would have tons of heavyweights or super heavyweights in this top 10?
Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, maybe.
Oh yeah,
maybe.
I don't think anyone's comparing this era to that.
Mike Tyson
would make it
in his prime.
Would you put Tyson up there? Would you?
In his prime, yeah. And in his day and in his prime, yeah, devastating. Can you imagine anybody at any weight having all those knockouts?
In terms of his technique, but in terms of his technique, Tyson, would you rate him up there?
He looks pretty devastating now, actually. There was a video.
That was never spoken about with Tyson. Say, good technical boxer. It was all about.
It wasn't technical,
but
the technique and what he did in terms of that, he stayed low, he rolled, and he exposed the taller. He used his lack of height to his advantage, and how he used to come up with his hooks. I think anybody with those devastating knockouts, like we're talking about Eoin with 15 knockouts, Tyson, all those knockouts that he had in the 80s and 90s.
But that era, I remember is it Muhammad Ali's book, one of the books I read, and they start rolling up Floyd Patterson, these type of people, highly regarded in terms of the heavyweight division, have never been seen since. But there's a number, half a dozen more boxers.
How do you see that heavyweight picture playing out this year?
It looked like we were in for a treat with Fury and Wilder were set to fight in the rematch, but now Fury's signed with ESPN, and as I was alluded to earlier,
about that,
it looks like he's going to put it off, have a couple of easy fights, and like we were talking about the Jacobs and the Canelo and Golovkin fight, the way they put it off, and I can see it because this one career, you have to get out. You don't want to be getting out and say, oh, he had great fights, he was a great champion, but he can't even put a sentence together now. He's walking on his heels. You know what I mean, kind of thing. You have to think about your health as well. In terms of, I can see from Fury's point of view where he's thinking, look, I've been dropped twice heavily in that fight. Do I actually want to go in with this guy again, where I can take a couple of easy fights, get well paid, and then I'll fight him at the end?
That's against everything he's been talking about. I mean, I've said it before. I've really bought into Fury in terms of forget about the money. It's about me legacy. I want to fight the best. I'm not going to run scared from anybody. I know we hear a lot of that. But when he's come out, I genuinely bought into it. I said, yeah, I'm buying that. But yeah, he goes, like you say, he signs that contract, and the way you're talking there, that's the total opposite ends in terms of everything he's been saying up until this point. A couple of easy points, stay away from Joshua Wilder for now. So dispiriting, really.
I think, yeah, it is in the short term, but I think if he gets those fights in the long term and he wins them, then all of this doesn't make sense. You know, this doesn't matter. All of this doesn't matter. I think it all makes sense. The point being that we hopefully get those fights eventually. You know, I don't mind him having fights because he's such an entertaining fighter. He's going to put on a show wherever he is. He's a great
speaker. Is that good to watch though against inferior when he's come up against like Klitschko, kind of the underdog? But against, put a few fighters in against him, or just shouldn't be in the ring with him. Is he that?
No.
Is he that entertaining? Are people going to be like, I'm going to be all over this Fury fight coming up? He's not that type of boxer, isn't he? In terms,
he's going to have someone like. When someone is, because he's a great talker, and a lot of the hype and the build-up is that he needs someone to match him. Like that's why him and Wilder made they make great dance partners because they were back and forth, and then they lived up to it in the fight. The one thing with Tyson going to America now and fighting on ESPN, which he hasn't done against inferior competition, is knock them out. He's going to have to knock them out because in America the only currency is knockouts in the boxing world. If you win, it's great. But if you don't, it's kind of like, he won, but he didn't. He won, but he didn't knock him out. It's kind of, it's so come see, come saw. If you win with a knockout, no matter what round it is, that's it. You know, that's the excitement. That's what they want, especially with heavyweights. They don't want to see two big men who are 18 stone plus pawing away at each other. They want to see explosive. They want to see us going for it.
One of the things before we get on to Lomachenko, I actually want to ask you just about Canelo Alvarez because he's got an interesting 2019 coming up. I'm sure we'll be getting you on the show again to preview his next fight. Is it Daniel Jacobs in May? I think May is when it's set for. Like, you go back, what are we in March now? You go back 14 months ago, there was talks of you and Daniel Jacobs at that point. Like, I know you've spoken about it before, like what was going through your mind at that time. It wasn't just about the here and the now. It was thinking about your future health and all that sort of thing. Was there even just a little part of you that was like, Daniel Jacobs could be an avenue to the greater good of Canelo here?
Yeah, it wasn't like, Daniel Jacobs at that stage was champion in his own right. You know, he was the IBF champion.
Would have been a huge fight.
Would have been a huge fight. So, and he is a champion. So that was the temptation to come back. You know, walk straight into a world title fight. And I wasn't even coming back because I had the fight in 17. But there's more as I said, well stated, and all the reasons why: your financial future, your health. So there were a lot more reasons just to say no than to say yes. But in the end, it never really came about that. There was a solid. It was always just talk. Would I be available? Was I interested? Would I accept the fight? And it was always yes. But in the end, it was no substantial offer. Yeah, there was never nothing in writing. So it was never really on the table.
Right, here's the biggest challenge for today. At number 1, you got Vasyl Lomachenko on our pound for pound power rankings. Say something about Lomachenko that's never been said about his greatness before.
I can't. I think it's all been said. But he kind of justifies it all, you know.
I haven't seen enough of this fella fight. It's amazing, you know what I mean?
Guys,
as good as he is.
Yeah, it was the number 1 amateur.
Snippets here and there,
I don't know all the stats, but someone can rattle them off. But Olympic champion a couple of times, and
so what? Just flawless, basically. Just nothing that he can chip away at. Just
relentless in terms of his pressure, but it's more of a mental pressure that when you throw a punch at him, he'll slip it, move it, and hit you with 2 or 3, you know. And he's just non-stop. And he's the best boxer, pound for pound. He's probably the best boxer we've seen in a long, long time.
Really?
Yeah. He's definitely he's a generational boxer.
Your heart has to go out to Anthony Crolla on April the 12th. I've seen him described as a lamb ready to be slaughtered.
See, this is the thing. What I was going to say earlier, the narrative was Crolla, go ahead, that's great for Crolla, look what he's doing, because he is such a nice guy and doesn't get any stick, deservedly so, but he's being kind of commended and applauded for going up against the best. When Amir Khan, because he didn't fight Kell Brook, is why is he taking this fight? You know, just a difference in attitude, you know, just because the reputation precedes them in a way. But I think Crolla has to take this fight. I don't care. If you're a boxer and you're an active boxer and you want to be world champion, you want to be, like you said earlier, fight the best at the best. And that's what Anthony Crolla's doing. So for all the other guys on the list who didn't do that or picked and chose, Anthony Crolla has his opportunity now.
Got a shot, yeah.
And he's got to take the fight. He has to take the fight. You have to be in there with the best. You have to test yourself against the best. And
is there any type of strategy there from Crawley against this fella? I mean, where do you even start first day in the gym in terms of...
Crawley can only really fight one or two ways, where he's trained by this guy called Joe Gallagher in Bolton, and they always fight. Joe Gallagher's fighters always fight with a tight guard, and either they press you or they'll move back with the tight guard, and they'll try to take your punches on the gloves, and when you finish punching, they'll answer with punches. But it's just very hard to see how that can be effective against somebody like Lomachenko, who will sit straight in front of Crawley. He'll pepper him, and as soon as Crawley opens up out of that shell, he'll be getting hit. Crawley's a tough man though, and it will be if Lomachenko can actually stop him, that will be a big result for me. Just depends where Crawley is now mentally going into this fight, the age he's at, the fights he's had. He's had a couple of hard fights with Linares and a tough career as well. But yeah, it's a good fight, and Crawley has to take the fight.
Yeah, for sure. You have to. You fight against Lomachenko anyway. It's like when that's going, like
he can't lose because he's gone in terms of he can't lose, and I'm sure and I hope he is getting well paid for it, and maybe if he doesn't win, then he can retire saying he's fought the best. He has. He's fought Linares and Lomachenko.
I think that's what I'm saying. There is a bit of satisfaction. You get beaten by the better man, but there's this, you're disappointed and all that, but that can evaporate very quickly, and you got that bit of peace of mind. Well, I gave him my best shot, put myself up against the best. Wasn't good enough on the day, but I think you can live with that, as opposed to, you know what, I wish I hadn't sidestepped that. I thought that fight had come around again and never did. That little bit of grey could have eaten away at you.
I think it's always going to be there, because if it doesn't work out in the end, which the way you want it, because one fight will lead, and it might be a fight that you lose, but because you've lost, people will give you a fight now because they think you're vulnerable or you've done well, and like in any career, there's always shoulda, what if I done this? I'm sure, like you thought, there were opportunities for you to sign with different clubs and things like that. And you think, what if I done this?
Steady.
What
came in that summer, buddy?
No, I'm sure,
Instead of going to Grimsby.
What was the biggest club that ever came in for you that you didn't join?
No, let's not roll with that. He's just trying to build me up to knock me down. He's just trying to build me up.
Andy brought it up.
Don't come for me. Just because you had a bad start to the show, don't start training your guns on me now.
So Lomachenko, I think for the second year running top star pound for pound list. Thanks a million for that, Andy. Just before we wrap up very briefly, you were jotting down boxers.
I'm not even going to mention this is embarrassing. This is what Andy was talking about. This is total opposites, like, you know what I mean? So we're talking about all the razzmatazz. That's the avenue I've gone down in terms of these boxers, but no, because my first memories of like growing up were those fights, those Duran, Hagler fights, Hitman, Hearns, all of them. They must have been on telly. That must have been on telly, because I was watching that in Dublin as a kid growing up, and that was like almost like mesmerising. You know what I mean? Sugar Ray kind of dancing around. I remember always the thing, Hagler, he's not hurting me, laying gloves, but not really. And that was always interesting for me. Well, he's landing punches, but he's not. He's gaining points for that, but all of that type of thing going on. And then obviously it's Collins, Ben, and who was a Eubank. Those little trio for a period of time there, obviously because of Steve's involvement there, that kind of really grabbed me. But yeah, this kind of embarrasses me a little bit, because these are clearly the best fighters in the world. And
but those guys in their day and those fights, when you're talking about like the greatest fights of all times, Hearns and Hagler. Hearns, Hagler, best 3 rounds maybe of all time. Leonard, Hearns, probably the best 14 rounds of skilled boxing. And Duran, Leonard, probably arguably the best, like in terms of skill and perfection, and
really.
But to fight to learn from any boxer, just to watch, that's one that we would watch in the gym constantly.
Really,
yeah. Duran and Leonard.
We should unbelievable. We should do some sort of boxing goggle box with you two guys, where you watch those fights back. Kenny, thanks for that. I think
he could spend his time back.
I don't know.
Go and cut the grass. Get more satisfaction.
I actually need to mow the lawn. I've left it grow over the winter, so I need to actually.
Just before we wrap up, just a quick congratulations to Anne-Marie Maher, who won our competition for our Leia giveaway today. We'll be in touch with you, Anne-Marie. The answer was 1,225 points. That's how many points Felipe Conte-Pomi scored during his Leinster career. Thanks a million to Andy and to Kenny for coming in this morning. Andy, you've got a new video coming up soon with Cathal O'Grady.
Yeah.
So we're going to expect that in the next couple of weeks. Just a brief teaser of what you chat about.
We talk about everything. A very open guy. And what I didn't chat about in the interview, which was a remiss, he's actually, you heard him look up the video Gabrielle, her video of Rise, remember that? Ready to rise again.
Yeah.
He stars in the video.
No way.
Yeah, he's in the music video, so you can look that up. But he's a character and was a great fighter in his day.